said, well, he come from all the way down there to up here.
Good evening and welcome to the 17th business meeting of the Board of Directors of Levi Hospital this Tuesday. Oh, my goodness.
Levity.
It's not April 1st yet.
Business meeting of the City of Hot Springs.
That's all right.
Thank you. That's what happens once in a while. We'll start the meeting with invocation by Pastor Audrey Chapman and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by myself. So, Pastor Chapman, please. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon to our mayor and to all the board directors. I ask that each one bow your head in a word of prayer. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you. We thank you for the opportunity that you allow us in this community to serve, God. We ask that you give wisdom, give knowledge, give understanding and directions. God, I ask that you bless each one that has to work in this city, God, in our community, that we will be effective in the name of Jesus. And I thank you that all business be done in your power that will cause change. In your name we do pray. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Davidson.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Garcia.
Here.
Folly.
Here.
McCabe.
Here. This time we'll consider approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, modifications to the agenda, including any items on the consent agenda you'd like moved to new business?
Mr. Mayor, under our proclamation for Pro Bono Week, we have an incorrect spelling of the person we're going to present.
I have the correct
You already got it?
one. Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Director Folly.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to request two changes, or three changes, I guess, in the agenda. And I'd first like to apologize to the audience. I know some of them have to be here to speak on the ordinance addressing the water rates. But in the board packet, there was no discussion of what the project really is and what we're buying for $110 million. And I'm asking that we table this or remove this from the agenda until we have a clear understanding across the board of everything that's going into this project. This is a big expenditure, and it's going to give the community an opportunity to hear it at our work session as well. So I'd ask that those be removed, and I'd make a motion to that effect.
Those are items 12 and 13 on the agenda?
Yes.
And we have a motion to amend the agenda with the removal of items 12 and 13. Do we act on that separate?
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Director Clark.
Any discussion on the motion to amend? If not, maybe if you'd call
Okay.
for the vote.
All in favor of the agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Okay, that approves the amendment to the agenda.
Right.
And now continue
I'm sorry.
on with the
Yeah.
discussion of the agenda.
I have another amendment that I would like to make.
Please, Director Foley.
I'd like to ask that we add to the agenda an executive session item to discuss personnel matters.
Okay. We have a second on that.
Tonight. Second.
We have a second by Director Jones to move into executive session to review personnel items. That would be after the Board of Directors' comments, which is currently listed as item 15. We have a motion and a second to amend the agenda to add this item. All in favor by signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say
No.
nay. That item is added to the agenda. Now we have to approve the agenda as amended, which includes the 2 deletions and the 1 addition.
Mr. Mayor, I so move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve as amended,
Second.
seconded by Director Davidson. Motion was made by Director Jones.
Clark. Seconded. Clark seconded.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I was ready to. She beat me to it.
You were moving your lips. Well, okay, we
Ventriloquist act.
have all that. Thank you very much. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. This time we'll have approval of the minutes of the meeting of September 19th, 2017. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes as presented? Director Williams.
I move for approval of the minutes.
Second.
We got a motion by Director Williams, seconded by Director Garcia. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Recognition of guests. We have a couple of proclamations tonight, and I'd like to call Terry Diggs to the podium.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a lawyer here in Hot Springs, and I had the good fortune to start early in my practice and work several years at what was then Central Arkansas Legal Services. And this young lady, Virginia Hollenshed, was and is the paralegal there, has been since 1978. One of Virginia's duties is to coordinate the pro bono legal program, sometimes problem. The pro bono program is to arrange for free lawyers for those that can't be served by the lawyers that are employed by legal services. And there are many of those. I learned in my years there is a great need for poor people to be represented, to carry out the provision of our Constitution that offers equal justice to all and equal access to the courts. Pro Bono Week is a national effort organized by the American Bar Association that honors pro bono attorneys for their contribution to the justice system in their communities. It's designed to engage more attorneys in pro bono service. How many do we have now, Virginia?
Can't give you a number.
Not exactly. We have several in several counties that do pro bono work, take 3 cases or more a year to help. This year, the Access to Justice Commission, which kind of helps and supervises statewide over this, is organizing an event called Just Jeans on October 27th. That's going to be a casual Friday event to raise funds for the 2 legal aid agencies in Arkansas. Our center here is a part of the Center for Arkansas Legal Services, which covers 44 counties. Every county in Arkansas is covered. The others are covered by another corporation called Legal Aid of Arkansas. But that event will be October 27th to raise funds. There's a new website called Arkansas Free Legal Answers, and it's in effect now. It allows eligible low-income Arkansans to post legal questions, which legal services will have answered by licensed attorneys, maybe avoid going to court, maybe avoid hiring a lawyer. In addition to the proclamation we're receiving here in Hot Springs, there are proclamations being issued in about 14 other cities around the state. Other organizations are organizing a number of events throughout the state for Pro Bono Week. Center for Arkansas Legal Services has an expungement clinic at Shorter College in Little Rock, October 27th. There'll be one here in Hot Springs on December 1st at the Webb Community Center, organized by Legal Aid, and one at our house in Little Rock on December 6th. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate everyone who supports the provision of pro bono legal services to those who need them most. Thank you.
Very good. Well, before you leave the podium, let me read this proclamation by the City of Hot Springs. Whereas in a democratic society, access to justice is a fundamental and essential right. However, tens of thousands of Arkansans lack the means to gain access to legal assistance that is often critical to their safety and independence, and they are often forced to resolve complex legal problems on their own, including domestic violence issues, divorce, child custody, evictions, foreclosures, and physical and financial abuse matters. And whereas the Arkansas Access to Justice Commission, the Arkansas Bar Association, the Center for Arkansas Legal Services, Legal Aid of Arkansas, and local bar associations throughout Arkansas work to recruit volunteer attorneys to provide valuable legal services free of charge to those in need. And whereas, while members of the Arkansas legal community donate thousands of hours in free legal services and make generous financial contributions to legal aid organizations in our state, a huge unmet need for legal assistance remains for disadvantaged citizens. And whereas Rule 6.1 of the Arkansas Rules of Professional Conduct calls on every lawyer to aspire to provide at least 50 hours of pro bono legal services to persons of limited means. And whereas the National Pro Bono Celebration is a coordinated effort to showcase the great difference that pro bono lawyers make for individuals across the nation. And whereas from October 22nd through October 28th, the Arkansas Access to Justice Commission, the Arkansas Bar Association, the Center for Arkansas Legal Services, Legal Aid of Arkansas, the University of Arkansas School of Law, the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, Bowen School of Law, local bar association businesses, government agencies, and community organizations will be celebrating Pro Bono Week. And now, therefore, I, Pat McKay, Mayor of the City of Hot Springs, on behalf of the Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim October 22nd through the 28th, 2017 as Pro Bono Week in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and I urge my fellow citizens to join me in recognizing the pro bono community's contributions and the differences they make to our city, our system of justice, and most of all, to the clients served. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed on the 17th day of October in the year of our Lord, 2017.
That was so long, Mayor, I'm not surprised it was written for lawyers by lawyers.
I was honored to read it. I will call Willie Wade. Willie, difference makers. We have a proclamation for the difference makers. Whereas Difference Makers of Hot Springs, a community nonprofit organization created to provide education, awareness, and assistance for community residents, was founded on this day, October 25th, 2014, and launched its first community-wide revitalization project on USA Weekend National Make a Difference Day, October 25th, 2014. Whereas Difference Makers of Hot Springs collaborated with various community organizations to enter the 2014 Community Award Contest for Make a Difference Day by providing 5 citywide community projects simultaneously throughout the city of Hot Springs and in conjunction with Mountain Pine residents. Project recipients were Oak Lawn and Langston Elementary Schools, Washoe Children's Center, Mountain Pine Cemetery, and Friendship Cemetery. The day ended with a community picnic at Hollywood Park. In 2015, the reconvened at Hollywood Park to celebrate Founders Day with Feeding the Community Cookout, our way of thanking the community for assisting in our community efforts. Whereas Difference Makers of Hot Springs realized that through raising community awareness efforts to beautification and revitalization, it restored pride within the communities and fostered better community relationships. We also realized there was so much more work to be accomplished. Difference Makers realized that their role as a nucleus was born to advocate for the needs of the community and ensure healthy communities become a reality for all neighborhoods. Whereas Difference Makers of Hot Springs was recently donated the city's first community garden, renamed the Hot Springs Community Garden of Hope, which on this day, October 28, 2017, we officially open the community's benefit. It is our desire that this garden bring nutritional values in the form of vegetables and fruits, as well as establishing the city's first educational handicapped accessible garden, partnering with area elementary schools in an effort to enhance their educational experience of growing produce and its healthy benefits, as well as becoming a place to just relax and enjoy nature. Now, therefore, I, Pat McKay, Mayor of the City of Hot Springs, on behalf of the Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim October 28, 2017 as Difference Makers of Hot Springs Founders Day and Make a Difference Day in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be fixed on the 17th day of October in the year of our Lord, 2017. Willie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
hold it. She's gonna take a picture.
To the mayor and city directors for this proclamation. It is our goal and aim to continue to raise awareness concerning critical issues in the community, that we just live out the meaning of what transparency in all our efforts to make the community more unified, to ensure that everyone who has a voice, that their voice is recognized, and that as they are impacted, that we look for solutions and better ways to alleviate what may be foreseeable problems for them. Thank you once again for this proclamation. I also want to always thank the difference makers, because it's not me that do it all,
Right.
but it's a group of people that stands behind me and make me look good. Thank you once again.
Our next guest will be Mr. Gary Troutman, President and CEO of the Greater Hotsprings Chamber of Commerce, and he's going to give a report on a recent benchmarking trip.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Board, for the time tonight. As you said, just want to give a recap of our recent trip. We were in Chattanooga last Sunday through Tuesday. Just a little background. This is the fourth benchmarking trip Chamber has had. In 2014, it was Saratoga Springs, New York. 2015, Asheville, North Carolina. 2016, Oklahoma City. And this year, Chattanooga. I wasn't able to go on the first two. I did go with Mr. Frazier last year and some other folks. And the similarities start with Oklahoma City and Chattanooga in that they kind of had a chip on their shoulder. Background in Oklahoma City, United Airlines was considering putting a major plant there in Oklahoma City, and they'd asked for requests, and Oklahoma City had really hit all the check marks, everything that United had asked. But their CEO said, at the end of the day, I just can't send my people to Oklahoma City. So that's really what triggered all the growth that we saw last year back in the dating back to the late 80s and early 90s. With Chattanooga, what we didn't know is that Walter Cronkite had gone on the air before he retired in 1969 and called Chattanooga the dirtiest city in America. So needless to say, that didn't fare too well with the locals. So a movement essentially started then and really gained steam during the 80s. Now, we had a group of 15, which has been our largest so far. The speakers that spoke to us were the president and CEO of their chamber, which just coincidentally, and we didn't know when we booked the trip, just won the Chamber of the Year for the entire United States for 2017. Their vice president of economic development, two gentlemen from their business incubator, the CEO of their Convention and Visitors Bureau, and two people from the utility company. Now, the reason that's important, you say, why would you go see the utility company? Because they oversaw the broadband, which is, frankly, probably one of the main reasons we went to Chattanooga, and I'll touch on that in just a second. And then the president and CEO of their downtown initiative. So I've got 9 pages of notes. I'm not going to sit here and take much your time tonight. I would like to hit a couple highlights in telling you that a big watershed moment for Chattanooga was landing the VW plant. They spent years in anticipation of doing that, and it was a major coup for them. As you might expect, when you land VW, you get a lot of suppliers that also want to be nearby, as we've learned with Walmart in Bentonville. But the one thing that was kind of a revelation, and something that the vice superintendent at Lakeside Schools had told me before I left, and I heard it in another conversation before I heard it in Chattanooga last Monday, is that the schools are realizing that as much as they want to prepare all the students for college, every student is simply not going to college. And it bothers them to have dropouts, and it bothers them that in essence, kids kind of check out mentally in 10th and 11th grade. So Chattanooga recognized this and partnered with Volkswagen and mainly their local community college to identify these kids, and in 10th and 11th grade start putting them on more of a technical curriculum, if you would, akin to our old shop as we remember it. But anyway, the guiding philosophy is to prepare these kids that when they're 18, they graduate 1 week, maybe take a week off, and then they start at Volkswagen rather than, being unemployed, rather than anything potentially bad that could happen to them. They start preparing them in 10th and 11th grade for a job on down the line. And the kids were able to start out making $33,000 a year straight out of high school working with Volkswagen. But again, the two-year college was heavily involved in this initiative. They had the business incubator I mentioned. They had 72 businesses in there, varying sizes from 200 square feet to 5,000 square feet. One real lure for them is a heavily discounted rent. In Chattanooga, rent is anywhere from $12 on the low end to $25 or $30 per square foot. They started at $6 per square foot with these businesses in the incubator. They had to be for-profit, they had to be non-retail, and they were allowed to stay there 3 years. But they did have to make a profit was one of the requirements. One of the neat things is they brought in a speaker every month. They brought in an attorney, they brought in HR people, brought in CPAs, they brought in people to teach them QuickBooks, things of that nature. So it's very beneficial. A problem that their economic development person told us is that Chattanooga recognized years ago the problem they had, their high school kids graduated and never came home. And you guys probably have heard Forrest Spicer's presentation more than once on a similar problem. So it was kind of refreshing to hear that we weren't alone. So real quickly, VW now has 3,100 employees. They're their largest employer, but believe it or not, they were not until just recently. Little Debbie is also in Chattanooga. As is a big Amazon distribution center, and not a big one, Seattle, or the one that's in the national news now, but a pretty good size one there. Ironically, while we're up there, a lot of people, almost to a person, bragged on the continuity in government and that the city and county got along and they had great leadership in the state throughout. But ironically, one of the mayors that was accredited with a lot of this was Senator Bob Corker. And just to rewind, we're over there on Sunday and Monday of last week. So you're going to visit with Chattanooga people all day, and you come home and turn on the news, and there's Senator Corker with his run-in with the president. So that was the timeliness was kind of amazing there. To the incubator real quickly, as I said, they bring in professionals each month. They have a 93% success rate on businesses that started there. And again, the bonus was a discounted rate on rent and the leadership. One thing that we did see, as I mentioned, Little Debbie was headquartered there. We saw a lot of billboards with Little Debbie with Iron Man garb on. And what we didn't know is that they landed an Ironman competition a few years ago. It was immediately voted the number one Ironman competition by all the competitors on their first one. They've had 9 since, so they just hosted the International Ironman competition in September. One, you hear a couple quotes that stick out in your mind, and the CVB CEO told us, we're not in Atlanta or a Gatlinburg, and we don't want to be. And I thought that was important that they knew who they were and where they were going. With regard to the utility company and specifically broadband, they provide service to 170,000 homes and businesses for a total of over 400,000 people. They have a 9,000-mile fiber network and an advanced smart grid that encompasses the 600 square foot mile area. And they have 92,000 total subscribers. Just to bring that all home, they did all of that laying the fiber in 2 years. 2 years. So it was amazing for that. They covered that amount of ground in that short of time. We did get an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at their control center, which was amazing. We saw outages as they occurred and usage in real time. And finally, on downtown, it was really a three-step process. If you've been to Chattanooga, the Riverwalk and the river is such an integral part of downtown, but they really didn't adapt to it or use it for any benefit until the 1992. And the downtown group initially developed 3 miles of Riverwalk downtown. That has now become 13. There's a beautiful downtown aquarium that was partially funded with private money. And then the third phase of their downtown was an IMAX theater, a creative discovery museum, and another movie theater. They have offered incentives, pilot programs, encouraging upfront money with no taxes later for downtown development and living. And that's really kind of where they're headed now. That it's very reminiscent to me, having been in Little Rock for years, of the River Market. There's all this growth and business going downtown, but there's very few people that live there. So that's kind of the next phase. And in conclusion, I just want to thank you all for allowing Jeff Winter to go with us. And Sheila, thanks for letting us borrow him for a couple days. I think you thoroughly enjoyed the trip. And just similarities. Again, the downtown, they put real emphasis on growing their downtown again. And I don't know really that they ever did like we did years ago. So it seemed like theirs was first phase in a lot of regards. The loss of young people, as I mentioned, was a very big concern for them. And even though Chattanooga is quite a bit bigger than Hot Springs, they also had 3 million tourists last year, essentially the same amount that we did. Lessons to be learned, the Incubator, and I'm proud to say that we will start that almost immediately within the chamber on a smaller basis to see how that goes and nourish it. The workforce development that we'll work with National Park Community College and try to coordinate that with the local high schools. And really what we went up there for was broadband. And seeing what they have and what they're capable of just kind of whet our appetite for even more. So I think in addition to the ones of us that were on the broadband committee anyway, we've got 15 new believers, and we need broadband just as soon as we can get it. So I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. Will we be receiving a written report with?
I've got 9 pages of notes. I'll be happy to send you in the morning as soon as I get to my
That sounds
desk.
good. You mentioned incentives and some a lot of other things, and I'd be interested in understanding and knowing about more of that.
I've got a little bit of that
detail.
lined out, Karen. I've also got all their taxation and rates and all that, so you can kind of read between the lines on how they do that. They emphasize so much was privately funded. Now, they had some luxuries we didn't. A lot of their money came from Coca-Cola bottling and franchising back in the early days, and I mentioned Little Debbie and some of the others. So there were a lot of those executives and CEOs in those companies that gave some seed money up front to get things rolling. So.
And did you have information about similarities? I mean, we're not on an interstate, but did y'all identify any similarities?
Well, like I said, the three concerns, but tourism's big for them. It's not, it's not as big for them as us because they do have so much industry. The college there, downtown development, but it just had a great. It felt like a tourist town, even though it wasn't as much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your report. As we move into the action items of tonight's agenda, we noted that there was a omission of a sign-up sheet for those who wish to speak on the sign ordinance. So when we get to that part, just feel free to raise your hand and we'll call you forward. As many of you veterans know who have been here in the past, we have a little time clock here, and for those of you who haven't spoken here in the past, we'll have a countdown clock of 3 minutes to allow you kind of a visual as to how much time remains for your presentation. And as far as audience participation goes, we welcome your participation in that regard. We do ask that we be respectful of those who are presenting at the podium, as well as the discussion amongst the directors. So with that in mind, we'll move forward with City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
David?
So first up, we have our Employee Health Fair that will be held Thursday, October 19th at the Hotsprings Fire Department. We're expecting around 200 employees to attend. There will be vendors available, and health screenings, blood work will be done, and flu shots will be administered. This event is an important tool in helping the city reduce and control healthcare costs by identifying preventive healthcare strategies that might apply for our plan members. Also, we have Boo with a Badge coming up. It's a safe, fun, and free night of treats, games, haunted hallways, giant fish tanks from Arkansas Game and Fish. There'll be emergency vehicle demos and more, all brought to you by Hot Springs Police and Fire Departments, plus 8 more first responder agencies. This event will be held at the Central Fire Station, 310 Broadway, on October 31st from 5 to 7:30 p.m. So if you're striking out on trick or treat, please come to bring your child to Boo with a Badge. Also, we have the inaugural What It's Worth event. This is a creative event benefiting the City of Hot Springs Arts Advisory Committee. It will be held from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. on Thursday, November 2nd at the Transportation Depot. The public is invited to bring antiques, art, curiosities, anything that you have of value and you'd like to find out what it's worth. You can bring it to this roadshow-style verbal valuation by appraisers from Moran Antique and Fine Art Auctioneers. There's a $5 fee per object for up to 5 objects per person. And proceeds will be used by the Arts Advisory Committee to maintain and expand the city's public art collection. Next, the city will be closed on Friday, November 10th in observance of Veterans Day. Solid waste collection, recycling, and downtown pickups will occur as usual. CAPS pickup and commercial cardboard pickup will be suspended. IT offices will be closed, but public bus and paratransit van service will run as usual. The city's compost facility will be closed that day. So next, I'd like to announce that our Intra-City Transit Director, Richard Grandin, will be retiring at the end of October, marking an end to his 5 years operating the City of Hot Springs transit system. Richard's career spans more than 27 years with management stops across the country from Las Vegas to Nevada to Memphis, Tennessee. We wish Richard well in his retirement. Staff are currently working with our management contractor, First Transit, to identify a candidate to continue the leadership of the city's public transit system. Then I'd like to say a little bit about the radio system project, just a status update on that. I'm in the process now. When I got back from my trip last week, I got here Monday morning, and on my desk was the recommendation from our review committee. And so now I've started contacting mayors and administrative staff and about a half a dozen or more cities that have a system that's similar to the one that is so far is the top contender. So I'm still in the process of checking those references. I'm about halfway through the list right now and waiting to connect with some more folks before I have my final recommendation to the board. But I do have some good news about that. The original bid, as you recall, we bid those out and then we rebid those. And the reason we rebid them is because after we do our bids, we begin a negotiation process of rating and ranking with the committee, negotiating with the selected vendors. Well, our first round of bids that we got back just didn't contain enough data and detailed information for us to have what we thought was a real successful negotiation process. So we rebid the project, and it did slow us down a little bit, but the results are amazing because we got the kind of materials we needed. That was Federal Engineering's recommendation to us to rebid so we could get more information. And that information is what led to a series of negotiations with our leading vendor, and they did show also a lot of flexibility and creativity in working with our staff to get the price down, and I'm pleased to share that the final negotiated price is $4.9 million and change, saving more than $1 million under budget. So that will leave plenty of, I think there's about $750,000 to $780,000 it'll take to do the dispatch center down at the police station, the upgrades to the dispatch center. So we were concerned that we might eat into their general fund budget if we couldn't get a good deal on this thing, but we got it where we needed it, and I think we're going to have a mild cushion there. So I want to thank especially that review committee and how hard they worked, and as well as our fire chief and our police chief, I think probably did a bit of good cop, bad cop, and to get that down where we needed it. So I really appreciate their work, and also our vendor. I think One thing I can assure you that there will be a seamless interoperability that's available under this chosen one. Unless I hear something just really bizarre in the reference checks, I think we're going to have something for you by your next board meeting, which would be the first meeting in November. And then lastly, I want to say something about the office remodel we did over here. First of all, there's probably never a perfect time to remodel your office if you're a city manager. But having said that, the office contains my office, the executive assistant, a break room, and a public seating area. And I want to be clear that the remodel that we did in that facility takes in all of that space, not just an individual office. And it was also a $26,000 project. And our building permit, we ended up having 2 building permits pulled because staff didn't realize that one had already been pulled. So it appeared that we were spending $50,000 in my little 14 by 14 space, which would be pretty extravagant, I think, and that was not the case. In fact, I wanted to mention also that according to staff who were here for the duration, there's not been a remodel of the admin office area for more than 30 years. My assistant had an inadequate storage space for her daily duties, as well as prep work for meetings and needed storage area within the kitchen space. We did try to salvage and reuse as much as possible of old furniture. Some of it just isn't safe, so we're not going to put that out, but we're also borrowing chairs from other departments that we hope to, they'd like to have them back. So when we get furniture, we'll distribute those chairs back to those other departments. But I also want to say that I take full responsibility for this. I know the timing isn't good. Our objective here was really to create a basic, modest, professional administrative space free of hazards, safety concerns, mold, and other things that wouldn't be embarrassing when we have meetings with other professional or business people from whom we are seeking larger community investments. Some of you might recall using this door out here that goes into the administrative suite. And I talked to an employee today who's been here 17 years. He said that, Dave, that door's been that same way the whole 17 years. Yesterday we had a guest in City Hall whose hand was slammed into that door. These are just things I think if you've been here long enough, you don't see them because you're used to them. Mm-hmm. But, if that had been a child, it could have been a pretty serious injury. So we're just we want to take care of our building and make it last as long as we can. And we also think it's important to take care of our building when we're telling other people to take care of their buildings. So again, the timing wasn't great. We did schedule the work months in advance to minimize service interruptions to the public during last week, a time which we knew far in advance that I would be out of town and we wouldn't interrupt our workflow. But again, I apologize for any hard feelings this has caused and take full responsibility. That's the conclusion of my report.
Thank you, David. Board of Directors, upcoming items for discussion. Anybody have an upcoming? Oh my goodness, Director Garcia.
Yes, next week on October 26th is the Hot Springs Business Expo across the street at the Hot Springs Convention Center. It opens at 8 a.m. with the business to business, and then it'll be open to the public at after the morning. At noon is the Idea Fame Live, and you can do your pitch. And I believe there are 2 $1,000 awards. One is the People's Choice Award and one awarded by the judges of the event. So if you have a good idea that you want to pitch, you might want to be in that competition and be there and enter it at noon. And the Business Expo continues through 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Thank you. Director Williams.
Yes. This Saturday and Sunday at Kemery Park, the American Freedom Softball Camps and Tournament will be held. This is an opportunity to showcase through this tournament and camp talent, softball talent here in Arkansas, East Texas, and West Tennessee teams to allow coaches within the region to see these people participate in the tournament. We'll have coaches from Belmont University, Henderson, Arkansas Tech, South Arkansas University, the College of the Ozarks, and Central Baptist College, as well as University of Arkansas at Monticello, and 3 professional women's softball players will be helping run this camp. They're going to have a round-robin tournament with the top 2 teams playing for the championship. And the camp starts Saturday night, and it's going to have about 125 campers in attendance.
Very good. Thank you.
Mine's not
Director
upcoming.
Jones?
Do you mind, Mayor?
Please, go ahead.
You said upcoming announcements. This is over with, but I still wanted to say something about Clifton Coleman. He was a long-time term board member and a volunteer for the Sister City program, as well as an educator for the Hot Springs School District. He and his wife, Christina, chaperoned many youth delegates to Hanamaki. I was there one time when they went. They trained these kids to be global ambassadors for Hot Springs. He was known as the encourager at the Hot Springs School District for the way he lifted up everyone he met. He had a tremendous gift for music, and he used it to minister to everyone who heard him. And we, as a board and the city, would like to extend to Christina and the family our sympathy. The Hanamaki delegation will really miss him. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements?
I don't have any upcoming events, but I see we have a lot of familiar faces in the audience and some new. And some of the new people may not be aware of the incredible acoustics in this room and how anything you say travels up here and how easily it can be heard. So if you would, please keep your talking and comments to a whisper. Thank you.
I, like you, Director Jones, I have a upcoming event, but it's like in 52 weeks.
Oh, come on,
Can
man.
you pass on that?
Well,
I won't remember
I
to
went
write
to an
that
event
down.
Saturday, and the next one will probably be 52 weeks.
Okay.
And from now, so I wanted you to get it on your calendars. The Walk of Fame had a real nice event on Saturday. First time I attended, and it's been going on for many, many years. And that should be that room should be overflowing with local citizens. We had 2 individuals here from our community that were, and it's not always from Hot Springs. I mean, very few, seldom is it from Hot Springs. Normally they have to have an Arkansas connection. But we had an African-American baseball player by the name of Art Superman Pennington, who played in the Negro Leagues back in the 40s and 50s and was quite a ball player and went to school at Langston. Came right out of Hot Springs. And he was the cream of the crop. And I learned a lot of history that day. Lane Jones was with me.
I did
we
too.
were both there, and he was 94 when he passed away. It was just a year or 2 ago, and his youngest sister was in attendance, and she was at a young age of 92, I think.
Yes.
And so, or 91 or something. So, and that was a wonderful event. A lot of the Offsprings, cousins were there. Another member of the Negro League was there. He was about 88 years old. A lot of history. Learned a lot that day on Art Superman Pennington. And when Hank Aaron wondered why Art never got, he called him Soup, why Soup didn't get a professional contract. Art knew why he didn't get a contract, but you need to do your own research on that.
Yes.
And then the second was a gentleman we all know and the family very well. Adam Brown was installed as in the Walk of Fame, and we all know Adam as a Navy SEAL Team 6, and in his last mission there in Afghanistan, he was killed. So his daughter is a very fine, lovely young lady. Has grown up I know Adam would be very, very proud and is proud looking down upon her, and we wish the best to that family, because I know that there's still a lot of grief there. So, but I'm going to make it a point, and I'd like the community to make it a point to pay attention to the next time there's a Walk of Fame, and try to get out and support that. If you can't support it, financially, certainly support it in your presence at the function. It was at 11 o'clock. We were done at 12:30. Then we crossed the street and we unveiled the plaques that were placed in the sidewalk. And Tom Wilkins is the founder of that, and he has a committee that he works with. He was very complimentary of the city of Hot Springs for their assistance and expertise in getting those plaques laid in the sidewalk, and having them look as well as they do. So please keep that in mind. 52 weeks from last Saturday. Thank you. At this time, we're going to go to the consent agenda. There is these are of routine nature, and that doesn't merit discussion. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Director Williams.
I'm going to make that motion.
Thank you. Director Williams made the motion, seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Director Clark. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The consent agenda is adopted. Our first new business item is to consider Resolution R17-154, and I'd ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R17-154, a resolution awarding a bid to Coakley Company, Inc. for the 2017 Phase 1 Waterline Improvement Project. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion and a second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Have a motion to adopt. So moved. Motion to adopt by Director Folly, seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Director Davidson. At this time, we'll have a report from City Engineer Mr. Carnahan.
Thank you, Mayor. The staff is recommending this award to Coakley Company, as we said, in the amount of $497,737 for the 2017 Phase 1 Waterline Improvement Project. This is a continuation of our efforts to replace degraded water mains throughout the distribution system. A lot of our old steel pipes are rusty and leaking and need to be replaced, and you've been very supportive of that effort for the last several years. And so we want to continue to do that. So this project includes about 7,500 feet, about 1.5 miles of old water mains in 5 different streets: Ostego, Larry, James, Piper, and part of Greenwood streets. It's being funded as a part of our water budget, annual water budget, 2017 water budget. And so we had 3 bidders at a public bid opening. Our engineering firm recommends that we award the bid to Coakley Company, the low bidder. So appreciate your support in approving that contract.
Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Carnahan, I just had a couple of questions, but first I wanted to thank you for all of the information that you did provide and send to us, and it was very in-depth.
Good. Thank you.
During the bid reviews, are there any points or consideration given for minority or women-owned businesses?
Not no. When we have we have different types of contracts that we can offer. Some are. This is strictly a bid for price bid opening. And in those cases, we look at price only, as long as it's a qualified bidder and they meet the specifications. Sometimes, though, we do a different type of request for proposals where we have different ranking, rate and ranking of different elements that we consider other elements, price and other things like previous experience, et cetera. And one of those is minority business qualifications. But in this case, it's not taken into account.
And who will be overseeing this project, and who's responsible for security?
Security?
And who's overseeing the project for the city?
Okay, Larry Merriman is our major project
And he's going to
manager.
oversee this one?
He oversees this, and we have an inspector that works in our staff that will do the inspection work.
And so they're responsible for the security of any items?
Management. They have to submit a traffic control plan. It's reviewed in my office. Pat Watson on my staff reviews traffic control plans to make sure that that's done properly. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Williams?
Well, during my time in my previous job, I had a lot of good experience with this contractor. This is one of the contractors that, when they had a job, I never really had to worry about them and their workmanship. They're an excellent contractor.
Any other questions of Mr. Carnahan?
All right, thank you very much.
Well, we don't have anybody who signed up to speak on this was from the audience. Is there anybody that might have come in late or failed to sign? Thank you. Any discussion amongst the board members? All right, call the question. Thank you.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Folly.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. At this time, we'll move on to ordinance number 01737, but we need to entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
I'll make that motion.
We got a motion to
Second.
suspend the rules by Director Williams, seconded by Director Garcia. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion to suspend is approved. Planning Director Selman.
Let me read it first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why don't you read it first, Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. I shall.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 01737, an ordinance adopting the 2017 sign code, repealing ordinance number 5086 as amended in its entirety and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would now entertain a motion to second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt.
Move for adoption.
Director Williams made the motion.
Second.
Seconded by Director Jones. Now we'll have our staff report from Planning Director Kathy Selman.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening.
Good evening.
This is an ordinance that proposes to eliminate content-based regulations which apply. Content-based regulations are regulations that rely on the subject matter of the sign or the message of the sign to define the category it falls into. I don't usually do this, but I placed a giant-sized sheet in your packet that says a content-based regulation as applied to a sign code means that if you have to read the sign to determine how it is going to be regulated, it is content-based. And the Supreme Court in June of 2015 very clearly said that if you're doing that, you're doing it wrong and you need to fix it. So all this does is clean up those parts of our sign code that focused on the message or the topic rather than the size of the sign, where it could be placed, is it a wall sign, a freestanding sign? Message is what we're looking at here. At this time, the Hotsprings Code prohibits placing signs in the public right-of-way. We're not changing that. We aren't changing any fees. All this is about is content of the sign. So, Planning Commission had a number of work sessions discussing this. They were open to the public. They also held a public hearing, which they advertised. And on May 11th of 2016, after calling for testimony and deliberating, they unanimously voted to recommend to you that you adopt an ordinance, which is presented to you in full as Exhibit A, to focus on type of a sign, not message, to craft a compelling purpose statement, which is in the ordinance, to scrub definitions to reduce and eliminate content-based references, and to structure the sign code to avoid any content-based distinctions. So the recommendation from Planning Commission is that you consider approving this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Director Salmon? Thank you. Were there any citizens that wanted to speak to the sign ordinance? Couldn't do so because the sign-up sheet wasn't there? Thank you. Any discussion amongst the directors?
Mayor, I would like to comment with respect to Ms. Selman's work on this project and the involvement that she engaged in with the Planning Commission. This has been a very tedious endeavor. The decision of the U.S. Supreme Court in Reed versus Town of Gilbert really put a lot of us on our ear with respect to this type of regulation, and I want to commend her work and the Planning Commission's recommendation to the board.
Thank you. There's no discussion amongst the board members. Please call the roll.
Clark.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Folly.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Brian, we have an emergency clause on this.
I didn't see that in the title, Mayor. Thank you for catching that.
Well, we're working together.
Teamwork.
Amen.
Teamwork.
Well, I don't see an emergency clause. There's Section 1 and Section 2. I don't see an emergency clause.
We don't have one?
Mm-mm.
I believe the title is.
Okay. Stand correct. Thank you. Our last item for business today is to consider ordinance number 01740. And ask I need to entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
So moved.
We got a motion by
Me.
Director Clark, seconded by Director Folly. All in favor? All in favor to read by title only, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Brian, please read.
Ordinance 01740, an ordinance accepting the annexation of certain territory located at 180 Oak Tree Lane to the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas, making the same a part of the City of Hot Springs, assigning said lands to a zoning district, assigning said lands to a board district, and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion, second to adopt, and have discussion.
Thank you. Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Davidson, seconded by Director Jones. We have a staff,
I'll handle this one,
Lance
Mayor.
Spicer is going to take this one.
Thank you, sir. This item comes to the board as a petition annexation. Some folks call these voluntary annexations. There are a number of ways to phrase them, although the petitioner here is Mr. Jeffrey Winter at 180 Oak Tree Lane. I don't know if you can see, I'll kind of give you an idea of the location here. This is just off of Park Avenue. You're looking at about the 2700 block of Park Avenue, and it's located essentially across the street from the former Belvedere Golf Course. So you're kind of in the northern part of the city limits. Mr. Winter had filed a petition with the county court to petition said property. His petition contained an accurate legal description, a map depicting the property, and that was filed with the county court. And pursuant to state law, the county judge had went ahead and set a public hearing for September 7th. That notice was ran in the legal notice section of the Sentinel Record 3 times prior to that September 7th meeting. And at the September 7th public hearing, the county judge reviewed the documents that were submitted by Mr. Winter, found everything to be in order and compliance with the statutes. And doing so, he entered a decree of annexation, which is the next process, and that is for the board to consider this approximate 6.5 acres of property that is right now it is unzoned. It will be designated R2 zoning located in City Board District 1, and we have complied with the 1440-101, which is the requirement to coordinate any boundary changes with the Arkansas GIS department. So we have done that as well. It would be appropriate for the board to adopt the ordinance annexing this particular piece of property.
Any questions of Mr. Spitzer? Thank you. Any members of the public that want to speak to this issue? Thank you. Discussion amongst the directors. Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Williams.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Folly.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. This time we have Board of Directors comments. Any directors have items they'd like to make comment on? I want to make.
Clock is missing.
Yeah, it's behind you.
Oh, it's still missing, that one.
No, that one was moved over there.
This one's missing.
I'm going to make a comment because the city of Hot Springs has done a really good job with the new way of monitoring the water meters in town. And about a month ago or so, less than a month ago, they contacted my wife and I and said we had water running at our house. And I was convinced that I didn't have any water running at our house. Walked around the house, walked through the house, checked all the toilets and everything, and I couldn't find water running. And then they called back about a week later and said, still got water running in your house. I'm going, dang. So I keep looking around, and so I decided to go buy one of those flapper things, and I put it in a toilet that I thought was probably the one. And I thought life got better. They called and said, you got water running in your house. I go, man. So I go to the other restrooms, and by God, there's one that was downstairs that the kids had that we don't go down there. And so I go buy a flapper, another one, and change that. It was bad. It really needed to be changed out. So I put my good ear down there to hear if it was running, and it was still running. And I go, dang. So now I turn that off, and I go back to the store to get the float item. Long story short,
Not really.
my water bill was bigger than all the parts put together. So when I went to the YouTube to figure out how to do this, since I'm all thumbs, and we all have our talents, and mine is not in that area, it said change them out every 5 years whether you think you need to do it or not. You know, it'd been many times that. So, so in other words, change out those guts of that water tank of your toilet, and you'll save yourself a lot of money in the long run. I had a big bill, and I think I crossed over into a new billing period, so I'm going to get another one. So that's all I have to say on that comment.
Give you the number of a plumber.
Mayor?
Yes, I was going to suggest
I need
you
better
next time
hearing.
call a plumber.
With that,
Director Garcia.
Director Garcia.
Yeah, just quickly, I did want to thank the Hot Springs Police Department, the Fire Department, our first responders, and LifeNet. Earlier this evening, there was an incident on Twin Points, and it happened to occur between the two entrances to Forest Lakes, where I live, and a vehicle was upside down between the two entrances, so they had to have it blocked. But when the accident, everybody was there. Everybody was very professional and handled everything without further incidents, and really thankful for all that they do for us every day.
It must have been flying to.
And it wouldn't be.
Thank you, Director Garcia. Any further comments? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to recess to executive session.
I so move,
Got it.
Mayor, that we recess to executive session.
Okay, Director Jones, seconded by Director Folly. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
Everybody's leaving.
Yeah, Driggers and Renee and all of that bunch.
That's who that is.
I think so.
I need a motion to reconvene.
So move. Second.
A motion by Director Davidson, seconded by Director Garcia. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
As a result of our executive session, there's no action taken and none to be reported. With that in mind, do we have any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, we have a motion to adjourn the 17th business meeting of the City of Hot Springs.
On the 17th day, I so moved, Mayor.
Got a motion is by Director Jones, seconded by Director Clark. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Sheila.